Okay, let's record.
The cobra displays one deadly fang. He seems to mean business. A bottle of Dr. Moribund's guaranteed snake oil. It's 1/4 full. Bifocal reading glasses. You read a police report on the criminal career of one Watney Little, conman extraordinaire. The file contains an amazing list of offences, mostly fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and various degrees of larceny. Glancing at the top of the page, you noticed that the investigations were conducted by Scotland Yard. You also noticed that the last entry describes Little's recent escape from Dartmoor prison. Clipped to the outside of the folder is a small handwritten note that reads simply, "Remember our deal." Apparently this file was provided in exchange for somebody's silence or service.
Can't save.
A bottle of Dr. Moribund's guaranteed snake oil. It's 1/4 full.
Quarter, good. I need that quarter.
Oh! The Countess is looking rather pale. She seems surprised that she died here on Olympia's desk. It's the bound and dead body of the Countess Lavinia Waldorf Carlton. The skin on her hand is as pale as her face, showing minor signs of lividity in the palms. It's the dead leg of the Countess. It's the dead leg of the Countess. The scent of the smelling salts is overpowering at this close range. You pick it up and place it in your purse. You detect a trickle of what could prove to be cobra venom. You deem it wise not to touch it when you remember that it's a neurotoxin that causes progressive paralysis leading to respiratory failure. That biology class was useful after all. They seem to be ordinary table grapes, nice and ripe. You pick it up and place it in your purse.
Can't save. The worst part of this part, I can't save anything. Now here comes the... Yeah, here comes the worst part of the game. Rex takes a bite at crime. That's a good hint.
You're a model of investigative brilliance. We salute you, Laura.
I'm gonna try and... 5. Okay, this is the part where I'm a bit confused. I need to go to the... Now go to the storage room hall. Storage room hall. Storage room hall. The hell? She runs so slow. Okay, I got myself. I can't save. What should I do here?
While this is, while this, while this, while this, while this, while this is, if you were to stand under this crate and cut, looks aren't everything. Looks, looks.
Okay.
It's a mummy from the Ptolemaic period around 330 BC whose name was Pu. His wrappings seem to be in fair condition, but exposure to the air is starting to make them crumble. You pick it up and place it in your purse.
A mummy? Just in time.
A snake protrudes from the mummy case's headdress. You remember that the snake is a symbol of Egyptian royalty. The snake shifts just a little, and you hear a click. You hear ominous chanting as you encounter a strange ceremony.
Ra, ra, sis, boom, ba. Ra, ra, Amen, ra.
Oops. From
Oh my goodness!
the Beatles.
Excuse me, I was looking for the women's lounge?
You're coming with us, young lady.
I think you're making a mistake.
You've seen too much. We can't let you go.
Not to worry. I won't remember seeing this room, or you, or anything. Really. I've got a terrible memory. Can't even remember my own name half the time.
I'm sorry you found us. Our cult of Amon Ra must remain a secret. There is too much at stake here. Too many important people are involved.
Cult of Amon Ra. In the museum basement.
This room is a forgotten part of the original museum. We are safe here, as long as no outsiders are aware of our existence.
Oh, well, my lips are sealed. If you want to dance and sing and have little meetings down here, that's your business.
You cannot be trusted, Miss Bow. You're a newspaper reporter. We could be a featured article on page 1 of tomorrow's newspaper if we let you go.
But people are going to miss me. They'll search the museum.
The police will never find this room or your body.
Oh boy.
You don't really plan to kill me, do you?
Of course not.
What a relief.
Kill is such an ugly word. Actually, we're going to sacrifice you to Amon Ra.
Can we talk about this?
There is nothing to discuss. You should be proud to die in such an honorable fashion. Young Egyptian maidens used to fight for the privilege of being sacrificed to the great Amon Ra.
Now, wait a minute. I thought the ancient Egyptians didn't make human sacrifices.
You're familiar with the history of ancient Egypt, Miss Bow?
Well, I've learned a few things.
Perhaps we could test you.
Do I have any other options?
We can test you or sacrifice you. It's your choice.
I'm liking this idea more and more. What kind of a test is it?
Amon Ra may choose to intervene on your behalf. It is our tradition that we must let you live if you can answer Amon Ra's riddle.
Great.
Of course, you'll have to answer the riddle with hieroglyphics.
I was afraid it would be something like that. Okay, what's the riddle?
Actually, it's a two-part riddle. What is the room you leave without entering?
Yeah, I've seen this womb. So W. Womb. B. B.
That's correct. Now, the second riddle. What is the room you enter without leaving?
Now it's a tomb.
Very impressive. You are the first person who ever answered that riddle correctly. The wise Amon-Ra apparently wants us to spare your life. Will you swear to keep our location a secret?
Of course.
Then you may leave. May the great Amon-Ra guide your footsteps.
Thank you. Now I just have to outrun the person who's been chasing me.
Who is chasing you? Do you think they'll find their way in here?
I'm not sure who it is, but I believe it's the same person who stole the Dagger of Amon-Ra from its display case. And I'm sure they'll find their way in here.
If that is true, they will not leave this room alive. I suggest you leave through our secret escape route behind the altar. Go now, and remember your promise.
Okay. Five temple.
This is the museum's furnace room. An immense furnace dominates the room and seems to be putting out a tremendous amount of heat.
Okay, what do I need to do here? Oh, that's following the way through.
A large, circular, ornately carved stone is hung on the wall here. It seems to be attached to upper and lower tracks which run for several feet across the wall. There's a drain set into the floor covered by a grate. When the furnace is cleaned out once in a while, the ashes are often hosed down the drain. There's an unconscious man in the coal bin. Although the coal has dirtied his face and hair, it looks suspiciously like Steve. Steve, being the large, unconscious type stevedore he is immovable in his current unconscious state, and he's got coal all over his body.
Mm.
While this is an interesting approach, it's Steve, the handsome young man who's been flirting with you all evening, until he vanished mysteriously several hours ago. There was silence supreme, not a shriek, not a scream, scarcely even a howl or groan, as the man they called Ho told his story of woe in an antediluvian tone. Lewis Carroll.
Ow!
Steve appears to be in great pain.
Ah. Okay, right. Mm. I need to give him the boot before he gets up.
Steve, being the large, unconscious type,
My head. What happened? Laura?
Yes, Steve. I was so worried about you. Are you all right?
I think so. I remember hearing somebody coming up behind me, and as I turned around, somebody slugged me. Cripes, my head hurts.
They must have dumped you down the coal chute. Let me see where you were hit.
I'm all right. Don't touch it.
Honestly, you men can be such crybabies. Do you think you can walk? We have to get out of here. Somebody's been murdering everybody in this museum, and whoever it is after me.
I can make it. I'm with you. Where do we go?
Good question.
Hmm. Okay. Where can we go now?
A large
Hmm. Let's save again, just in case. I'm close to the end now.
With a stone slid to one side, you can see a dark opening set into the wall.
Whoa.
How strange! Hieroglyphs are carved into the wall. You get the feeling that this is not just another air shaft.
Alright, guys.
You hear the sound of gunfire from the direction of the furnace room.
Sounds like someone's chasing us, Laura.
Okay, let me check something. Um,
You watch in relief as the last of the rats scurries out of sight. You can barely smell an unpleasant odor, like burning hair.
The game isn't over yet. We got the killer, but we need to... Act 6. Coroner's Inquest. But the coroner's
Keep
inquest.
this up and you'll put the entire NYPD to shame.
Thank you for coming to this inquest, Miss Bow. As the coroner on this case, I'm going to informally question you and study the evidence you've collected. If you assist me in developing a case, the perpetrators will be tried in the formal court of law. We're primarily concerned with the museum murders, but we're also interested in the theft of the Dagger of Amon-Ra and other matters that may have a bearing on this case. My examination of the corpses has been fruitful, but I need more evidence to build a case. Any information you can give us would help, but you must justify your conclusions with the evidence you've acquired. False accusations and unsupported conclusions will not be tolerated. Although I don't wish to pressure you, your employer is also here to judge your performance on this investigation. Since this is an informal proceeding, I've allowed it on the basis that your newspaper will cooperate with our wishes. Now, to the questions. Who murdered Dr. Pippin Carter?
Oh wow. Let me try this. Detective rank. Financial gain. I think it was financial gain. Financial gain.
Who murdered Lawrence Ziggy Ziegfeld? Who murdered Ernie Leach? Who murdered Yvette Delacroix? Who murdered Countess Lavinia Waldorf Carleton? Who was the skeleton found in the steamer trunk? Who murdered Dr. Archibald Carrington?
Okay.
Who impersonated Dr. Archibald Carrington? Who murdered Watney Little? Who actually stole the Dagger of Amon-Ra from the Ancient Egypt exhibit?
In the middle, or let's see. Stole.
Who manipulated Watney Little into stealing the Dagger of Amon-Ra? Who was the woman involved in stealing paintings from the Old Masters Gallery?
Woman. The Countess.
Based on what we now know, your assumption is correct, Miss Bow. Good work. Who was the man involved in stealing paintings from the Old Masters Gallery? Based on what we now
Hey,
know,
Florian.
your assumption is correct,
How you
Miss
doing,
Bow.
mate?
Good work. Who was the middleman who provided forged paintings for the Countess and sold the real ones for her?
Let's see.
Based on what we now know, your
Me
assumption
neither.
is correct, Miss Bow. Good work. Who is the high priest of
Okay.
the Amon-Ra sun worshippers? That's correct, Miss Bow. You're very observant. Which museum employee runs a fencing operation as a sideline business?
I'm just finishing this game. And I already got the OG Grim Fandango ready. Okay. Ernie Leach.
That assumption is correct. Mr. Leach was moonlighting with his own business as a fence installer. In fact, he put up a very nice fence around my house.
I have one final piece of evidence to present, Mr. Coroner. I have an eyewitness who would only feel safe to come forth if I established my case against Mr. O'Reilly. Now that I've done so, let me introduce Dr. Ptah Shep-Tut Smith of the Cairo Museum.
Mr. Smith's testimony is safe with us.
Many thanks. I was in the Egyptian ceremonial room, underneath the museum, when Detective O'Reilly killed 2 of my fellow sun worshippers. I saw with my own eyes how he gunned them down without mercy when they tried to stop him from chasing Miss Bow. However, we only managed to slow him down. His hood fell back briefly, revealing his evil face to us as he slaughtered our people. That son of a camel should not be allowed to run free upon the sands.
Will you testify in court to what you witnessed, Mr. Smith?
Happily, sir. My dead fellows expect their revenge, although Amon-Ra will certainly destroy O'Reilly's car when he journeys through the underworld.
I'm not qualified to give my opinion on Mr. O'Reilly's spirit in the next world, Mr. Smith, but I'm sure your testimony will help your dead friends sleep peacefully. Thank you for coming forth. I must admit that I'm impressed by your methods, Miss Bow. Not only have you identified the murderers of those unfortunate individuals, but you have also uncovered the skullduggery involving the Dagger of Amon-Ra. Our case is very strong now and prosecution can begin. The New York Police Department owes you a debt of gratitude for your assistance in apprehending these malefactors. I'm sure that a commendation of valor from the police department is in order. Thank you for your help.
It's all that lousy reporter's fault. Damned interfering Laura Bow. Thinks she can get away with squealing on me, does she?
I do have the files for ScumVM.
Well, she's got another thing coming.
Even the
Do you
patch.
hear me, Laura Bow? You'll pay for this. If it's the last thing I ever do!
Whoa, an angry Irish man. Ooh. Before we step on, let's...
Thank you for waiting, Laura.
I didn't mind, Steve.
Laura,
Yes?
would you mind... do you suppose... Laura, could you close your eyes? I have something for you.
Oh, I suppose so. Oh, Steve!
Do you like it?
Steve, how could you? How could you have stolen the dagger?
I didn't steal the dagger, Laura. I bought this copy for you at the museum gift shop. I thought you might like a memento of your big night at the Linedecker Museum.
Oh, thank you, Steve. I'm so embarrassed.
You're beautiful when you blush. Laura,
Yes, Steve?
would you consider joining me for dinner this coming Saturday?
Well, I'm not sure if I don't know if I should really... Yes. Yes, I'd be delighted to join you for dinner.
Thank you, Laura. You've made me very happy.
Oh, Steve!
Oh, Laura.
Oh.
Oh, Steve!
Okay, don't start with horniness, please. Please let it end with some dignity.
Since his skeleton was so nicely cleaned by the domestic beetles, Dr. Carrington's bones will soon be hanging on display in the Leyendecker Museum.
Well,
Yvette Delacroix died plastered. Her remarkably lifelike statue now lives on in the Old Masters Gallery of the Leyendecker Museum. Her memory lives on in the minds of all she touched. Her sculpture is attributed to Ryan O'Reilly, 1926.
okay.
Pleased by your success at finding his dagger of Amon-Ra and his murderer, Dr. Pippin Carter now rests in peace. Pippin Carter's body was transported to Egypt by his cousin and now occupies a place of archaeological honor in the Temple of Amon-Ra in the Valley of the Kings.
Really?
Due to your success at recovering the dagger of Amon-Ra and finding the murderer, Wolf Heimlich continued as chief of security at the Leyendecker Museum. 2 months later, he was married to Dr. Olympia Miklos. 2 years after they were married, Wolf and Olympia had a child they named Morgana Wolf Heimlich. Having died in the course of this story, Watney Little's life of crime came to an abrupt end. As he was not a nice man, nobody missed him. Due to your success at recovering the dagger of Amon-Ra and finding the murderer, Dr. Olympia Miklos married Wolf Heimlich, who continued as chief of security at the Leyendecker Museum. 2 years after they were married, Wolf and Olympia had a child they named Morgana Wolf Heimlich. As fond as he was of the Leyendecker, Ernie Leach noted in his will that he wanted his body donated to the museum. His body now resides in numerous small jars of alcohol, which will be placed on display in the new Hall of Internal Biology, adjacent to the Hall of Late Mammals.
Okay.
Dr. Patar Sheptut Tut Smith finally gave up on getting the dagger of Amon-Ra returned to Egypt. However, once it completed its US and European museum tours, it was returned to the Cairo Museum anyway. So, several years later, Tut died a happy man, even though his death was the result of an Egyptian cobra bite.
Oof.
After losing his head in the museum, Ziggy found himself unable to continue his criminal career. His head has been preserved and is now on display in the Life Mask exhibit at the Leyendecker Museum. Ramses Najir continued his successful career as an accountant and as head of the secret Egyptian cult of Amon-Ra.
Oh.
With his strong high society ties, his accounting business made Ramses a millionaire in 15 years. Having died from a snake bite, the Countess Lavinia Waldorf Carlton did not live long enough to inherit any money from her last husband, Sterling. Thoroughly impressed by your success as a reporter, your editor, Sam Augustini, nominated you for a Pulitzer Prize and was present when you received your citation of valor from the police department. Sam retired 10 years later to become a gentleman cabbage farmer, fulfilling a secret lifelong dream. Pleased at your success, Crodfoller T. Rhubarb was happy to become your assistant at the New York Daily Register News Tribune. Henri Lemore, the coroner, continued his successful career studying dead bodies for the next 50 years, finally retiring in 1976 to tour with a rock band, the Ungrateful Dead.
Okay.
Low Fat continued in the laundry business, eventually opening a chain of low-fat Chinese laundries across the country and becoming a millionaire in the process. Former Detective Ryan Hanrahan O'Reilly was sentenced to 60 years in a state penitentiary. Having been a cop, O'Reilly found it hard to make friends in prison.
I bet.
After your successful completion of the museum assignment, you started dating Steve Dorian. Thrilled with your success, John Bow spent the rest of his life telling people what a wonderful daughter you were and how he had taught you everything you knew about criminology. After your recovery of the Dagger of Amon-Ra, it went back on display at the Leyendecker Museum. The large amount of press coverage drew many patrons to the museum to see the dagger. After 2 years on display at the Leyendecker, the Dagger exhibit continued on a tour of museums in the United States, Europe, and finally found its way back to the Cairo Museum in Egypt.
Okay, don't go yet. Let's reload and go for the bad ending. Verities, Donald Waller.
I want to marry an archaeologist and keep his artifacts warm. I travel with him through jungles and deserts and weather out every storm. If he wants me to, I'll burrow and dig on burials small and pebbles big. Oh, I want to marry an archaeologist. What a marvelous gig. Mommy would love him and Daddy too. We'd be famous and well-to-do.
Okay.
Oh, I
Isn't have to let's watch the credits just for the Mark Seibert. Yeah, I recognize his music. The guy has a great range. Great range of styles. Josh Mandel, also known as the voice of King Graham. Lorelei Shannon, also a good writer. Sure, Lloyd also worked on other games, if I'm not mistaken. Dana M. Dean, also I've seen her name before. Jeff Grow. I've seen this before. Rich Powell, also sounds familiar. Dude, that is the worst death. Yeah, but the lip sync is only on this version. The floppy disk version doesn't have any lip sync. Rick Spurgeon, also remember that name. Also a good showcase of the time period. Scott Murphy, one of the two guys from Andromeda. Leslie Wilson, Bruce Balfour, Kelly Spurgeon. Oh, it was the developers who did most of the voices. Josh Mandel, oh yeah. Leslie Will, I knew it was the narrator was the same who voiced Laura Bow. Most they use the developers. The archaeologists. Brian King Hughes says the bouncer. Okay. Yeah, the developers did the voices. Jane Jensen! You mean the one who says, "Yeah, got a sexy voice"? That's Jane Jensen herself. Okay? The writer of The End. Okay, let's reload the game. Just a bit. Let's reload the game and go for the bad ending. Just to show the bad ending, okay? Let's reload the game and go for the bad ending. Bad ending makes during the inquest to say all the wrong answers.
Laura Baines.
Laura. Yeah.
Never.
That's...
Okay. I need to go through this part again, but this is okay. A few short puzzles. Not worried. Where is it? Where is it? Just for the bad ending, and that's it.
If your herpetology doesn't fail you, you're pretty sure these are king cobras. You hear the sound of gunfire from the direction of the furnace room.
Sounds like some...
You watch in relief as the last of the rats scurries out of sight. You can barely smell an unpleasant odor, like burning hair. Keep this up and you'll put the entire NYPD to shame.
Thank you for coming to... We're primarily although I... Who murdered... Who murdered... Who murdered... Who murdered... Who murdered... Who is the... Who actually stole... Who was the... Based on our own... She was unaware that her partner in crime was dead at that point, and she was seen carrying paintings. If she'd been confronted at that time with evidence that her partner was dead, she might well have confessed to her crime. Who is the high priest of the Amon-Ra sun worshippers? That accusation is false, Miss Bow. However, the high priest's identity is a carefully guarded secret, so your failure to identify him is nothing to be ashamed about. He was present at the museum party, but was rarely seen afterwards. One witness said he was spotted briefly in the office of Yvette Delacroix. Which museum employee runs a fencing operation as a sideline? Incorrect, Miss Bow. If I were you, I would have looked through the garbage in people's offices. Trash cans are often a good source of clues. Miss Bow, please remember in the future that you're a reporter, not a detective. By interfering at crime scenes, you make it much more difficult for the police to do their jobs. Not only are your conclusions based on unfounded guesswork, you don't even have any evidence to back them up. By your presence at the murder scenes and your destruction of evidence, I'm tempted to conclude that you were the murderer. You neglected to thoroughly question all the suspects, and you missed important evidence at the crime scenes. Although you discovered the Dagger of Amon-Ra, you have not arrived at conclusions about the theft that make any sense to me. I believe the theft involved two people, one of whom must have been on the museum staff. Because of you, a murderer is running loose in this city, free to kill again. I hope you're proud of yourself, Miss Bow.
Since his skeleton was so nicely cleaned by the domestic beetles, Dr. Carrington's bones will soon be hanging on display in the Leyendecker Museum. Yvette Delacroix died plastered. Dr. Pippin Carter, wherever he is quite displeased. You did not recover the Dagger of Amon-Ra, nor did you find his murderer. Therefore, Pippin feels it is only fair that he should haunt you for the rest of your life. Indirectly, as a result of your total failure, Wolf Heimlich was fired from his job as Chief of Security at the Leyendecker Museum. 1 year later, still out of work, he committed suicide in military fashion by falling on his sword.
You.
Having died in the course of this story, Watney Little's life of crime came to an abrupt end. As he was not a nice man, nobody missed him. After Wolf Heimlich was fired from his job as Chief of Security, Dr. Olympia Miklos moved to Montana to do full-time field research in paleontology, digging in the rich fossil beds she found there. Her greatest find was the carnivorous Olympiasaurus dinosaur.
She
As
is.
fond as he was of the Leyendecker, Ernie Leach noted in his will that he wanted his body donated to the museum. Since the Dagger of Amon-Ra was not recovered, Dr. Patashep Tut Smith was forced to commit suicide with a fake Dagger of Amon-Ra from the Leyendecker Museum gift shop. After losing his head in the museum, Ziggy found himself unable to continue his criminal career. His head has been preserved and is now on display in the Life Mask exhibit at the Leyendecker Museum. Ramses Najir continued his successful career as an accountant and as head of the secret Egyptian cult of Amon-Ra. With his strong high society ties, his accounting business made Ramses a millionaire in 15 years. Having died from a snake bite, the Countess Lavinia Waldorf Carleton did not live long enough to inherit any money from her last husband, Sterling. Extremely unimpressed by your total failure as a reporter, Sam Augustini fired you. Later that same year, he was mugged with a gift shop duplicate of the Dagger of Amon Ra and died from his wounds. He blames you for his death.
Damn.
Since you were fired after your total failure at the museum, Crodfuller T. Rhubarb continued the investigation, found the Dagger of Amon Ra and the murderer, and won a Pulitzer Prize for his excellent work.
At least he got a good ending.
Henri Lemore, the coroner, continued his successful career studying dead bodies for the next 50 years, finally Low Fat continued in the laundry business, eventually opening a chain of Detective Ryan Hanrahan O'Reilly continued in his job and became a full-time homicide detective. Having amassed a small fortune by being frugal, he retired to Ireland 3 years later. Steve Dorian was quite upset by the unfortunate event that happened to you later that night. Stunned by your total failure and the unfortunate event that occurred to you later that evening, John Bowes spent his remaining years in a New Orleans mental institution. After you gave it away, the Dagger of Amon Ra vanished. 20 years later, in 1946, it mysteriously appeared on the doorstep of the Cairo Museum in Egypt. There was human blood on the blade, as if it was some kind of a message.
Oh, like the opening. Okay. Yeah.
You had your chance and you blew it, Lorabo. This is what happens to interfering reporters.
Eek. Overkill, isn't it? And the neighbors, I'm sure the neighbors heard of it. Okay. Yep.